Hi, happy Thursday. I couldn't be here today, but I thought I'd make a recording for those of you who were absent yesterday or left, or if just didn't make any sense yesterday. So I've opened up my Mary, and you'll notice that I've got my bass drum, the smart drums, I've got my guitar, my bass, and then I've got my two auto plays. So I'm all set to go with these last couple of steps. But before I do anything, I'm going to mute all of these. You'll see why in a moment. Even you. And so they're gray, so they're muted. I'm going to add a new instrument. So instruments. In this case, I'm not going to use a smart instrument. I'm going to use a dumb instrument, I guess. Keyboard. So click on the keyboard. And here we have a piano. Now you might say to yourself, I don't actually play piano. Well, the good news is this won't be too difficult, and I think you'll be able to handle it. So the first thing I need to show you is this button in the middle, glissando. When it says scroll, when I switch it to scroll, I can drag the keyboard anywhere I want. I'm going to drag it right about to the center, and I'm going to leave it there. And once I have scrolled it to where I want, I click back to glissando so that it doesn't move around. Now these keys are set up pretty close to what I want them as, but I want to show you what you can do. When you click on that button right there, this pops up. You have some choices. We've gone through this before where you can double your keyboard, you can make it skinnier, you can make it wider like I've done. The one thing, or two things you want to check, make sure velocity is on. Or actually you could put it off. I'm going to do it off, and the reason you would put it on is the harder you hit the keys, the louder it would be, and the softer you hit it, the softer it would be. I'm going to make it all even, so I'm going to take that off for the moment. That's totally up to you. If you're not a piano player, that might make things a little easier. The key controls, however, that you do want to leave on, because look what happens when I turn it off. That button goes away, so now I can't scroll anymore. There it is. And now it's gone. So leave the key controls on. And then I'm going to go ahead, I think I'm going to leave my keys this wide. But if you want to make them skinnier, or you want to make them even skinnier, I don't know why you would do that, but maybe that matches up my paper that I gave you, and then you could lay the paper right on top and play the keys. You might measure that out, or maybe you have to draw your own. I don't know. So I'm going to go back to the wide ones. It just makes more sense to me. So I've got my keys. Here's my C. Now C3 indicates that it's at a certain range. I can scroll it so that I get C2, and you'll notice C2 is lower. And I go to C1, I can go C0, and it's starting to get a little low. So I'm going to go back up, and of course you can keep going as high as it will go. It even goes higher, but I'm going to stick with C3. That's a pretty good range. So I've got my C3, and put it back on glissando so it stays. And now I'm going to practice Mary Had a Little Lamb. I gave you papers yesterday, and so you should look on those, but I'm going to show you what you're going to do to practice it a lot. Unless you're a piano player, you probably shouldn't just jump in and record this. You will probably end up with something that I will make you redo anyway. So practice a few times first, and then you would want to try to record it. So the keys go like this: E, D, C, D, E, E, E. And that holds. Then we switch to D, 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 D. Move up again. E, and jump to G. Now repeat it. E, and this last part is the part that most people need to practice. It goes like this: 2 Ds, 1 E, 1 D, and C. I'm going to do that last little part again. 2 Ds in the middle, up, down, down. By the way, the D looks like, if you think about these 2 black keys above, looks like donkey ears, or dog's ears, I suppose. So that would make that the D key. And you'll notice that as I spoke about them, C, D, E, F, G. Remind you of something? I hope so. The alphabet, of course. So that's how you're going to be able to find the keys. Most of you are really going to do the hunt and peck method for a little while, where you look at which note I asked you to play and look it up and press it. And then you go to the next one. Then you go to the next one. But the idea is that you do them in a row. So you practice it over and over and over and over and over and over till it's boring. And then you're going to practice it in time. Well, what does that mean? Well, you're going to go up here, make sure your metronome is on, that it's blue. And now I'm going to start the click. I'm not recording. I'm just starting the click. So here's my click. Okay, so I can keep the speed going. Now I can play it at this speed. Okay, I can play it at that speed because I've played piano a few times. However, you might want to go slower. How do we do that? You might remember this. Wrench. There's my tempo setting. And suppose I know that that was just way too fast. I need to pluck them out a lot slower. So I would set this by tapping it. E, D, C, D, E, E, E. Well, that's about my speed, 57. So then when I go back here and press the play button, now it's a very slow speed. So we could do it about this. E, D, C, D, E, E, E. Okay? You can go slower if you want. Now, if you practice it really well and you want to go a little faster, that's fine. However, you want to make sure that you're not going faster than the music. Okay, so make sure you're staying to the beat. And you also want to make sure you're not going slower than it. Now, when you start doing the recording, first of all, I'm not set up to do the recording. My slider is way over here. I'm going to put it all the way back at the beginning. You have a couple options. You could leave everything muted, and that would be perfectly fine. You would just be tapping to the beat of the click, the metronome. But maybe you want a little background going on. One of the things that work great would be your bass drum, because that actually is actually to the beat. Okay. I would possibly also, for me personally, I might add my bass guitar. So now I don't know, maybe that will annoy me during the Mary while I'm trying to play it. It's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and leave these on while I record it. But if you don't want to leave them on while you record it, then don't do that. It's just that simple. All right, so I now have my piano keyboard. Make sure that I'm on that. Everything's muted that I want to have muted. I go back to my piano keyboard. All right, I am going to record. Da, da, da. So here's the record button. Remember, it's going to click 4 times, and then you will start recording. So, you know what? I just realized I think I still have it at super slow. I do. I'm going to move mine up a little bit just so you are not bored. All right. So I'm going to play it at about 113. Let's see. We are going to set this back up, put it to the beginning, and I am ready to record. Let's see what happens. All right, then it repeats it, goes back and starts playing it. So, sweet. Let's see what we got. I'm going to take a look at it first. And I can tell when you send this into Google Classroom, eventually, basically, I can see which notes you played. And that's going to be I don't even have to listen to it. I can just look at it. Some of the notes will be longer if you hold the notes like I showed you. But maybe you didn't do that. You know, the world won't come to an end. You can manipulate them. I know some of you like to manipulate these a lot. So there actually is one thing you can do, and that is edit it. Now, strangely enough, this also represents the notes that I just played. So this green thing right here is actually that key, and that one is that key, and that one's that key. So if I played just one tiny little note wrong, I could actually manipulate that note. Like say this one, I look back and I go, oh, that's a sideways piano, cool. That note I want to move, let's see, I want to move it down. So I made it too short. So you can also make it shorter and longer. I'm going to drag it, I said drag it down. It's really having issues.